Have you ever opened a bag of chips or poured a drink and noticed that the flavor just isn't as punchy as you remember? One minute it's a huge burst of taste, and the next it's kind of gone? Well, that's not your imagination, and it's not magic. It's chemistry. And today, we're going to pull back the curtain on the amazing science that keeps flavor from fading away.
So why does this happen? Well, it all comes down to the simple fact that most flavor molecules are incredibly delicate. They're what scientists call volatile, which is really just a fancy way of saying they are tiny little escape artists. But they're not just flying off into the air on their own. They're actually being attacked.
And right here, these are the four main culprits, the biggest enemies of taste. You've got air, which causes something called oxidation. That's what makes food go stale. Then there's light, especially sunlight, which just breaks down those fragile flavor compounds. Moisture can wash flavor away or trigger weird chemical reactions. And finally, heat, which basically just puts the escape plan for those flavor molecules on fast forward.
So if flavor is under this constant attack, what can we do? How does the food industry fight back? Well, they don't just cross their fingers and hope for the best. Nope, they build a fortress, a microscopic fortress.
And this amazing solution is called flavor encapsulation. The idea behind it is actually brilliantly simple. You take the precious little bit of flavor, which scientists call the core, and you wrap it up inside a protective coating, which they call the wall or the shell. This wall acts as a physical barrier, literally shielding that sensitive flavor from everything on the outside.
So, how do they build this tiny little safe? Well, first you start with your core material. That's the flavor you want to protect. Then you pick out a wall material, which is usually a food-grade carbohydrate, something like maltodextrin, or maybe a protein. You combine them in a very specific way, and what you get is a microcapsule, a perfect little package with a flavor locked up tight inside.
Honestly, this is the perfect way to think about it. It really is microscopic armor. Every single tiny particle of flavor gets its own custom-fit suit of armor to defend it against all those flavor killers we just talked about: the air, the light, the moisture, and the heat. This is what makes sure the flavor stays powerful and stable, all the way from the factory to your kitchen.
Okay, so how exactly is this microscopic armor made? Well, the food industry has a few really clever tricks up its sleeve, but two of the most common methods are, funny enough, polar opposites. One uses intense heat, and the other uses the cold.
All right, let's break down these two workhorses. First up, you've got spray drying. For this, you mix the flavor with a wall material like a starch in some water, and then spray it as a superfine mist into a chamber of hot air. The water evaporates almost instantly, and boom, you're left with a dry, flavor-packed powder. It's really fast and pretty cheap. On the flip side, you have spray chilling. For this method, the wall is a fat or an oil. You melt it down, mix in the flavor, and then spray it into cool air. The fat solidifies, trapping the flavor inside. This is absolutely perfect for those delicate flavors that just can't take the heat.
So what this really means is that flavor scientists are kind of like matchmakers. There is no one-size-fits-all solution here. You see, a really delicate, heat-sensitive lemon oil would get totally destroyed by spray drying, so spray chilling is the way to go. But for a more robust spice flavor, the speed and efficiency of spray drying is perfect. The method always has to match the mission.
Now, I know this all sounds super scientific and maybe a little abstract, but this technology isn't just stuck in a lab somewhere. It is in the food you eat, probably every single day. So let's take a look at where these tiny flavor shields actually show up. And wow, this stuff really is everywhere. Beverages are the biggest users by far, nearly half. That's because without encapsulation, all those citrus and fruit flavors in your favorite drinks would fade incredibly fast. Next up is dairy, where it keeps things like yogurts and ice creams tasting fresh for their entire shelf life. And of course, it's a huge player in snacks, making sure that bag of chips tastes just as awesome on day 30 as it did on day 1.
Just think about it for a second. That lemon-lime flavor in your soda that stays fizzy and bright? Yep, that's probably encapsulated. That really intense burst of mint you get in certain ice creams, that's encapsulation too. But the technology goes even further than flavor. Sometimes it's used to create a protective, invisible coating on fresh fruit, like strawberries. In that case, the shield isn't for taste, but it's there to slow down spoilage and keep the fruit fresh for longer. Pretty cool, right? So this technology has already completely changed the food on our shelves, but believe me, scientists are not done yet. They are constantly pushing the boundaries of what's possible with these incredible tiny flavor armors.
So what's the big takeaway here? What does it all boil down to? Flavor encapsulation is all about one thing: control.
It's this incredibly sophisticated delivery system that protects fragile flavors from the moment they're made in a factory all the way to your kitchen, and it makes sure they're released at the perfect moment, which is right when you take a bite. It's the hidden science behind that consistent, delicious taste you count on.
And that brings us to the really exciting part, the future. As scientists get even better and more precise at designing these microcapsules, they're starting to explore some mind-blowing possibilities. Just imagine flavors that actually change and evolve as you chew, or foods that release different smells at different temperatures. This tiny armor is already shaping how we eat today, and it's absolutely going to make our world of taste even more dynamic and exciting tomorrow.